some Fridays you will have virtual learning days. So you will work, these are your bell ringer activities, which will include Quill, which has been assigned to you through Google Classroom. You have your Epic Books, which I gave you the code, and you have News Ella, which I either posted the document in Google Classroom or you can get it through Clever. Excuse me. So every time you sign into class while you're waiting for everyone to come in, this is your bell ringer activity every day, whether you're working on Quill or you're working on Epic or you're working on News Ella or even listening to one of the podcasts. That is your bell ringer activity for every day that you'll work on. Okay, let's see. Now let me go to the next thing. Okay, this is the quill assignment that you were given. Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah, I have one of them. Okay, boys and girls, excuse me. So this is the quill activities, and they've been assigned all the way through June. You're going to be working on subject verb agreement, and you're going to be working on commonly confused words, and they're spread out until the end of the year. So if you're not familiar with quill, I'll show you one. And this is how it looks on my screen. It may not necessarily look this way on yours. But all you have to do, you read the directions, use the action word that matches the person or thing doing the action. Are you going to put the old man feeds or feeds? And then you have the right answer. So they did one for you. So the girl has curly hair or the girl have curly hair. You're going to rewrite the sentence. You'll type your answer here, and you'll keep. There are only 10 questions, and then you save and exit when you're finished. And it's well, I don't think it's like this on your screen, but they're very short. So we're going to all do this now. So everybody go to www.getepic.com students. Enter the code IIS1171 because I'm going to show you where you have 3 questions that are graded. Let's see here. You have 3 to 4 questions that are going to be graded, and I'm going to show you where that is.
What was the website called? Epic. Sorry, it's
Victor, please look at the note in the chat box. So boys and girls, after you put in the website and type in the class code, look for your name. What is your name, sir? Paul? Paul Parton? Okay, thank you. And you can grab a wipe and wipe your desk and sit at one of these with a partition. So boys and girls, after you enter the website, enter the code, find your name.
Who teacher should see?
It's ELA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait,
if you have any questions, please type it in the chat. Are there any questions so far?
I have a question.
Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Victor. What did you say?
I have a question.
Yes, go to Mrs. Matterson. So log off and log in her class.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So let me just go back for those who may have just been joining the class. This is your weekly agenda that will be posted in your announcements page in your Google Classroom. And every day for your bell ringer, you'll work on Quill, Epic, or News Ella. You'll work on it before class while everybody's logging in, and you'll work on it during your virtual learning days. And if you finish assignments early, you'll also work on it then. So now we're logging into Epic. So go to this website, number one, go to www.getepic.com, enter the class code, and those are 2I as in ice cream, IIS1171, then select your name. Are there any questions? Okay, so the next thing I was talking about was Quill, and you have assignments assigned to you all the way to the end of the year. And we're basically focusing on subject verb agreement. So are there any other questions so far? Okay. So I put a little note in your agenda of what is due, and you should see this in your Google Classroom as well. And then I posted all of the quill assignments all the way to the end of the year. That will be in your agenda so you can see them. And this is posted in your announcement. Now, for those who were not here yesterday, it's very important when you go to Google Classroom that you click on classwork so you can see the folders that I have arranged in the class. So these are your assignments, News Ella, and I posted the articles just in case you couldn't connect with Clever. These are your announcements and the weekly agenda, which you saw on the screen. And be sure that you watch the YouTube video and follow. And this is a copy of the letter I sent to your parents. So what we're going to do now, we're going to play a quizzes game. Yesterday we talked about the story, The Gift of the Magi. So everyone should have read it by now. So please type this link and put in the code. And I am keeping notes of who's here, who answers the questions in the chat, who participates in quizzes or Kahoot. and it's going to be a part of your grade. Okay, I'm waiting for a few more students to log in. Hey, good morning. Okay, we have a few more minutes. For those who haven't finished, and our winner is congratulations. Now, boys and girls, yesterday we read, or you should have read, The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. O. Henry wrote many short stories. So, in this short story, The Gift of the Magi is very ironic. So, let's talk about irony for a moment. What is irony? It's the contrast between the expectation and reality. There are three types of irony: verbal, situational, and dramatic. The gift of the Magi is an example of situational irony. Verbal irony is the difference between what is spoken and written and what is really meant. And this is found in your Google Classroom under the unit materials. One type of verbal irony is sarcasm. People usually say one thing, but they mean something else. Take a moment to note the examples of verbal irony. Romeo and Juliet said they came from two households. They were both alike in dignity, but actually they were not, because they were very argumentative and had a feud between the family for years and years. And they're the cause of these two committed suicide. Situational irony. It has a twist ending. Think of it that way. And that's what you'll see in The Gift of the Magi, in that the woman sold her hair to buy Jim a chain for his watch, and Jim sold his watch to buy his wife some beautiful combs for her long, beautiful hair that she ended up cutting off. Is what you expect and what is the opposite of what actually happens. Take a few moments to read the examples on the screen, examples of situational irony. What is dramatic irony? It occurs when the audience knows what's going to happen, but the characters do not. They have the inside information of what is going to happen in the story. For example, when you look at a horror movie, and you know that Jason is in the woods and he's there on the loose, but the teenagers go through the woods anyway at night because they think it's fun, and then they get killed by Chucky, Freddy Krueger, or Jason. So, for a moment, take a moment and look at these literary terms: dramatic irony, verbal irony, and situational irony. And in this cartoon strip, there is an example of irony in action. Now we're going to look at some pictures and photographs, and you're going to tell me through the chat what is the irony of the situation. What is ironic about this picture? And please type your answer in the chat. It says absolutely no soliciting, but what do telemarketers do? Soliciting means they are trying to get your business, they're trying to sell you something, or they're trying to get your information. Yes, Paul. Yes. So when they solicit, they're asking for or requesting or they're begging. And when someone solicits, it's usually almost like harassment. So in this picture, you see telemarketers next to a no soliciting sign. All telemarketers do is call your house and solicit for information. And that's the irony. So soliciting is the primary job of telemarketers. All right, look at this picture. What is the irony of this picture? Type your answer in the chat. Yes, it says fire protection, but it's burnt down. Very good. What's the irony of this picture? Yes, it stops the rust, but the can is rusty. Thank you so much. What is the irony of this picture? Yes, junk food is next to an obesity warning sign. What is the irony in this picture? Yes, it says dead end, but everybody around it is dead. Yes, it's in a cemetery. What is the irony in this picture? Yes, the man body is hairy, but not his head. How about this picture? The dog ate up the dog training book for dummies. What is the irony in this picture? Yes, they have a dog training book, but the dog is not trained. You're exactly right. Very good. Thank you, Sanaya. Thank you, Triana. Thank you, Liliana. And thank you, Cameron, for your answers in the chat. All right, what is the irony of this picture? Yes, it's a fitness place, and they have escalators, and yes, they're being lazy. What do you think about this picture? It's saying aloha for Kansas, but aloha is supposed to be it's Hawaiian. That's exactly right. What is the irony in this picture? They're taking a picture of yes, they can't use camera, but someone took a picture and nothing happened. What is the irony in this picture? Yes, the design on the truck, and the truck is on fire. What is the irony of this picture? Yes, it's supposed to be sugar free, but it still has sugar. The brown sugar and maple. What is ironic about this picture? Yes, Coke machine, but a Pepsi truck. I love Pepsi. Thank you so much for your response. Okay, it says no birds and a bird is on top of it. Sometimes you have to tell the difference between an irony and a coincidence. Coincidence is random, irony the opposite of what you would expect. You may end up wearing the same clothes as your friend. That's a coincidence. But if you and your friend talk about how you have completely different styles and never dress alike, and then the next day you wear the same shirt, that would be ironic. Now we're going to do some more practice with the verbal, dramatic, and situational irony. So as I said in the other slide, there are three types of irony: verbal, dramatic, and situational. Dramatic irony, when the reader understands more about the events of a story than a character. For example, your parents are proud you have an A on the test, but you know they cheated. Situational irony, when what actually happens is the opposite of is expected. For example, Bill Gates uses an Apple computer when he's the chief over Microsoft or IBM or one of them. So again, irony is a contrast between what is expected and what actually happens. So you have situational, dramatic, and verbal irony. Now, in the chat, I want you to look at the example that's on the screen, the statement. You're going to identify the following examples of irony as situational, dramatic, or verbal. And you're going to type your answer in the chat. Okay, someone says situational. Someone else said dramatic. It would be situational. So great job, Triana and Kaylin and Liliana. We do not expect George to see his girlfriend with another guy. I was talking to a young person last night and they were so upset because the girlfriend broke up with them and they're engaged to another person. I told them, I know it hurts, but they actually did you a favor. They show you who they really are. Okay, let's look at this example. You're watching a horror movie. You know, the boogeyman is waiting for the main character in the closet, but the character doesn't know and they unknowingly opens the door. Is that situational, dramatic, or verbal irony? Okay, most people are saying dramatic. I have two responses. Yes, dramatic. Okay, you walk outside into the pouring rain. Your friend sarcastically comments, "What lovely weather we're having today." What type of irony is that? Is it dramatic, situational, or verbal? Okay, someone said verbal. Yes. All right, what is ironic? What type of irony is in this picture? Any responses? He's calling the protesters stupid, but he spelled the word wrong. Boys and girls, that's why we're in English class. To make sure that you never embarrass yourself by speaking incorrectly, spelling something incorrectly, or writing something incorrectly. Or let's say you become an athlete or someone in the entertainment world and you sign a contract because you really don't understand what it means, and the contract is not the best for you. So, this is why we must have command over the English language. Okay, what's the irony? What type of irony is this? This is why education is important. So, when you become an adult, no one can trick you and no one can cheat you, and no one can violate your rights. Okay, most people are saying situational. Yes, very good. What is the irony? What type of irony is this? Okay, most people are saying situational. Yes, the van drove into a school of safe driving. Okay, your date for the school dance shows up in a ripped jeans and a stained t-shirt. What type of irony is this? Situational, dramatic, or verbal? Yes, verbal. Thank you, Cameron. And if I say your name wrong, let me know. Josiah, Kaylin, and Triana. All right, what type of irony is this? When watching a talk show, the audience knows why a person has never been brought on the show. However, the person in the chair does not know that they are going to be reunited with a long lost friend. It would be dramatic irony. What is the irony of this picture? Yes. Would you expect someone that lives here to specialize in complete home repair? Absolutely not. All right, look at the examples on the screen and tell me what type of irony is each. Okay? Someone said dramatic, verbal, and situational. Mhm. And boys and girls, all these PowerPoints documents are under unit materials in your Google Classroom. Now, let's see here. Now I'm going to give you a moment. If you go back to your Google Classroom, click on classwork and look in assignments, you are given an ed puzzle. I don't know. I've only had 3 people turn it in. It's due today. So we're going to do it now. So please click on the link.
Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man, and the butcher, until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it, $1.87, and the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it, which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, the sniffles predominating. When the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. A furnished flat at $8 per week. It did not exactly beg her description, but it certainly had that word on the lookout for the Duncansy squad. In the vestibule below was a letter box into which no letter would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now, when income was shrunk to $20, though, they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. Whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a gray cat walking a gray fence in a gray backyard. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she only had $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She'd been saving every penny she could for months with this result. $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Many a happy hour she'd spent planning for something nice for him, something fine and rare and sterling, something just a little bit near worthy, near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. Perhaps you've seen a pier glass in an $8 flat. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now there were 2 possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window some day to dry, just to deprecate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all of his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or two splashed on the worn red carpet. On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat. With a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street, where
Okay, why is Della looking at her hair and crying? Yes, you can answer.
Where she stopped, the sign read, Madame Sonofreni, hair goods of all kinds. On the flight up Della ran, and collected herself panting. Madame, large, too white, chilly, hardly looking Miss Sonofreni. Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. I buy hair, said Madame. Take your hat off, and let's have a sight of the looks of it. Down rippled the brown cascade. $20, said Madame, lifting the mass with practiced hand. Give it to me quick, said Della. Oh, and the next 2 hours tripped by on rosy wings. Forget the hash metaphor. She was ransacking the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple, chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by meretricious ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him, quietness and value. The description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. Grand as the watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of an old leather strap that he used in place of a chain. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love, which is always a tremendous task, dear friends, a mammoth task. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, long, carefully, and critically. If Jim doesn't like me, she said to herself, before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? What could I do with $1.87? At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove, hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his step on the stair way down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit of saying a little silent prayer about the simplest everyday things, and now she whispered, Please, God, make him think I am still pretty. The door opened, and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin, very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22, and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat, and he was without gloves. Jim stopped inside the door, as immovable as a setter at the scent of quail. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with that peculiar expression on his face. Della wriggled off the table and went for him. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. Don't grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I got for you." "You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim laboriously, as if he had not arrived at that patent fact yet, even after the hardest mental labor. "Cut it off and sold it," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well anyhow? I'm me without my hair, ain't I?" Jim looked around the room curiously. "You say your hair is gone?" he said, with an air of almost idiocy. "You needn't look for it," said Della. "It's sold, I tell you, sold and gone. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered," she went on with sudden, serious sweetness, "but nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put on the chops, Jim?" Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della. For 10 seconds, let us regard with discreet scrutiny some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week or $1 million a year. What's the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table. "Don't make any mistake, Dell," he said, "about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first." White fingers and nibble toward the string and paper, and then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick feminine change to hysterical tears and wails, necessitating the immediate employment of all the comforting powers of the lord of the flat. For there lay the combs, the set of combs side and back that Bella had worshipped long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell, with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the tresses that should have adorned the coveted ornaments were gone. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile and say, "My hair grows so fast, Jim." And then Della leapt up like a little singed cat and cried, "Oh, oh!" Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her bright and ardent spirit. "Isn't it dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it." Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. "Dell," said he, "let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on." The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men, who brought gifts to a babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat, who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are the wisest. Everywhere they are the wisest. They are the Magi.
So I hope everyone who did not finish theirs have completed it. All right, we're gonna play a little game called Truth or Lie, because I didn't tell y'all anything, because we didn't do it yesterday. So you're gonna put true or false, or you're going to put what the lie is. And this is about me. Okay, which one is the lie? I live in Georgia. I have three sisters. My parents are in their 70s. I graduated from Ohio State. What is the lie? Please type your answer in the chat. Yes, thank you, Josiah and Patience. Let me see, make sure I have these names down. Because there are a few people who haven't said anything at all today in the chat. Okay, I'm a cook. I'm a national board teacher. I'm the eldest. I have a dog. What is the lie? What is not true? Okay, someone said I'm the eldest. Someone said number three. Someone said number four. Actually, the lie is I don't have a dog. I'm afraid of dogs and cats and rats and bats and bugs. I am the oldest. Oh, yes, I do like to cook. And these are some things I like to cook. I've cooked at home, but I don't necessarily. And then I like to do workshops. But let me go to the next one. Okay, which one is the lie? I do trainings with teachers. I like doing STEM activities. I like cats. I taught elementary, middle, high school, and college. Yes, number three is the lie. I do not like cats. I'm not going to harm animals, but I don't want them near me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all you pet lovers. Okay, what is the lie? I've published books, articles. I can fly a plane. I taught over 20 years. What is the lie? Yes, the lie is I cannot fly a plane. Actually, I don't even like riding in planes. But anyway, okay, I like arts and crafts. I took music lessons. I traveled to Hawaii and Canada. I can swim. That's right, I cannot swim. You're exactly right. Matter of fact, I jumped in the pool and I thought I was going to drown. And my aunt yelled at me. That's me when I was a baby. And actually, that's one of my great grandmothers right there. That's on my mom's side of the family. That's my great grandfather. His name is Page. That's a little bit. So that's a little bit about me. Did y'all play Kahoot yesterday? I can't remember. Did this class play? Okay, you did. Okay. Now this is you don't have to do this, but I know you students love TikTok. So to tell something about yourself, if you want to, you could do a TikTok about yourself, and I'll play it in class. But it must be appropriate clothing, appropriate gestures, and appropriate movements. I think everyone knows what I mean. But that's only if you want to. I know you students love TikTok. I watch it from time to time, but then I don't have time. Okay, now we got to do this. Okay. Now what is it? What's that? Now it loads on my other one. Okay. Now we're going to talk about what is an inference. And this is just for review.
You wrote a story? I looked around the packed theater. My knees were shaking and my heart was pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I pretended I was alone and played my violin. Great job, Moby. I really understood how nervous you were, even though you didn't say you were nervous. I made an inference. What is an inference? When you infer, you use clues and what you already know to come up with an idea. I've heard that sound before. It's thunder. Everyone's wearing rain boots and jackets and holding umbrellas, so I can make an inference that it's raining. I don't really know for sure that it's raining because I'm not outside, but the thunder and the rain gear are clues, so I can be pretty sure it is raining. How can I make inferences when I read fiction? Let's see. In this book, the tortoise and the hare have a race. The hare makes fun of the tortoise and says she's really slow. Instead of preparing for the race like the tortoise, the hare just talks about how great he is. During the race, the hare is so sure he'll win, he thinks he has time for a nap. And the tortoise wins the race. The way characters act can tell you about how they think or feel. The hare makes fun of the tortoise, brags a lot, and then falls asleep during the race. These clues tell me that the hare is kind of stuck up and thinks he'll win the race. The tortoise gets ready for the race, ignores the hare, and goes as fast as she can. These clues tell me that the tortoise is really determined. Authors use clues and details so they don't have to write everything in exact words, and figuring out how the characters feel can be exciting. But I can make inferences in all kinds of writing, not just fiction. How can I infer when I read nonfiction? Ooh, here's a book about sea turtles. Leatherback sea turtles lay their eggs on land. One leatherback can lay over 100 eggs. I wonder why sea turtles lay so many eggs. You can use what you already know to make inferences. I know that seagulls like to eat baby sea turtles. And I know that the ocean has other hungry predators. I can infer that sea turtles lay a lot of eggs because most of them will not survive. You can also use what you observe to make inferences. Ew, I bet all that trash doesn't help the sea turtles. Maybe that's one reason why they're endangered. I guess making inferences is like being a detective. You look for clues and put them together with what you already know to come up with an idea. I guess I can infer that it's time for lunch. Hey, wait for me.
So students, look in the chat. What inference can be best made about Della from the description of the gift of the Magi? What inferences can you make about Jim and Della based on their actions? What inferences do you think the author, O. Henry, intended readers to make about the characters of Jim and Della? And this story is about relationships. When do you sacrifice too much, or is there ever such thing? What do you think? Yes, they care about each other, they love each other. What else can you infer from this story about the characters and the message that the author is conveying to the reader? I only see two responses. That they really don't have much, so the things they did have, they sold it just to make the other happy. And is that true love? What do you think? Can you give without loving someone? But can you love someone without giving? What do you think? Type your answer in the chat. What do you think?
Making inferences
All right, this is one more.
at Grammar Songs by Melissa. What is an inference? More importantly, how can learning to make inferences make me a better reader?
Love teaching.
Let's get started.
I just
Wish I had more
An
time to
inference
prepare.
is a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. Good readers infer by using what they already know, prior knowledge, along with clues in the text evidence to form an idea. Did someone say clues? Yes, Detective Waddle. Looking for clues is very important when making inferences. Let me show you. We make inferences every day in real life without even realizing it when we use the clues around us to make sense of what is happening. Stanley must be hungry. He was probably speeding. That man is scared. Tony does not like sushi. In everyday life, people combine the clues they see with their prior knowledge. Stanley always cries when he's hungry to form an inference. Stanley is crying. He must be hungry. What inference could you make if you walked into this cafe, Detective Waddle? What clues do you see? I see party hats, I see presents, I see happy children, and I see a cake with candles. So, Detective Waddle, what inference would you make? Use the clues you see and your prior knowledge to form an idea. I know. She is having a birthday party. The clues are the hats, the presents, the friends, and the cake. My prior knowledge tells me that the birthday girl is the one who will blow out the candles. My idea or inference is that she is having a birthday party. Very good, Detective Waddle. I know how to look for clues and make inferences in real life, but how can I make inferences when I read? That is an excellent question, Detective Waddle. Let me show you. When you read, you need to use the same steps your brain automatically takes when you make an inference in real life. First, you must look for clues, but now the clues are found in the text as text evidence. Then you add what you already know, your prior knowledge, to the situation at hand. Finally, you put everything together to form an idea or make an inference. Let's read a short story and look for clues to make an inference. Shelton was getting hungry. He went to the kitchen where his mom was carefully putting long, thin noodles into a pot of boiling water. In another pot, she was heating red sauce. First, we need to look for clues in the text. What clues do you see? Well, Shelton was hungry. His mother put long, thin noodles in boiling water and heated a red sauce. Very interesting. Now we need to use what we already know, our prior knowledge. But how? Well, Shelton was hungry. When I'm hungry, I want to eat. His mother was putting long, thin noodles into boiling water. In another pot, there was red sauce, so she was cooking something for him to eat. Great idea! So now we just need to make an inference. We can form an idea based on the text evidence and our prior knowledge. I know, spaghetti. Shelton's mother is making spaghetti. It all makes sense now. Very good, I was making spaghetti. Have some. Making inferences can be quite delicious. Let's read another short story. We will look for clues and use our prior knowledge to form an idea or make an inference. Bob came home from school one day. He happily opened the cookie jar. It was empty. He saw some crumbs leading to the living room. When he entered the room, his little sister Megan looked up at him and smiled. She had crumbs all over her face. First, we need to look for clues in the text. Detective Waddle, what clues do you see? Well, the cookie jar was empty. There were crumbs leading to the living room. Megan looked at Bob and had crumbs on her face. Very good. Now we need to use what we already know, our prior knowledge. Detective Waddle? Well, when Bob came home and found the cookie jar empty, he was disappointed. I know I feel disappointed when things don't turn out the
Yes,
way
sir.
I planned. I also know
yes,
that
you
Bob
can.
followed a trail of crumbs to the living room where his sister Megan had crumbs on her face. I know little kids make a mess when they eat something. My prior knowledge
Are there any questions? Well, we're gonna go ahead and log off. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Paul.